What if the biggest threat to your heart is the truth? In Wicked Games, Part 3. The electrifying tension between love and betrayal reaches a boiling point. T.K. Leigh masterfully continues this thrilling romantic saga where every revelation is more dangerous than the last, and nothing is as it seems, as secrets unravel and past choices come crashing into the present. Our characters are forced to confront the truths they've buried deep. Passions ignite, loyalties are tested, and the line between protector and enemy becomes hauntingly thin. This part of the journey dives deeper into the emotional storm where love is powerful, pain is inevitable, and the only way out is through. Will love survive the fallout? Or will the Wicked Games finally destroy everything? Chapter 16. My heels skid on the tile in the lobby of the journalism building on campus as I rushed to the elevator, checking my watch. 10 minutes past 3 on Thursday afternoon, meaning I'm 10 minutes late for my first day of class. I shouldn't be surprised. I'm notorious for being late, especially when sexting with Lincoln Moore. Lincoln, just Lincoln. Ever since I appeared at his door last Friday, scantily clad, we've seen each other every day. And every day, I grow more and more addicted to his touch, his essence, his everything. Once the elevator doors close, I pull out my phone and read through our most recent exchange, unable to stop the smile from tugging on my lips. Lincoln. Have I mentioned today how much I love your legs? Me. My memory's not what it used to be. I am closing in on 30. Why don't you refresh my memory? Lincoln. You're still a baby, and I love your legs. Actually, I'm not so sure love is the correct word. I think about them nearly every waking moment. Me nearly, Lincoln. Yes, nearly. Except when I'm buried deep inside you. Then I can only think about how amazing your pussy feels when it clenches around me. Desire, thick and intense, coils in my core as I attempt to come up with a response, having left him hanging once I realized I was running late. The elevator doors open and I scurry down the hallway toward my classroom, typing out a quick reply. Sorry to leave you with your dick in your hands. Lost track of time. Have class. Maybe I can come over after and you can feel my pussy clench around you. You know, so you can take a break from thinking of my legs. Once I hit send, I shove my phone into my bag, slowing when I reach the classroom, fixing my frantic expression. I open the door and do my best to slip in unnoticed without interrupting class, smiling at a few familiar faces who don't seem surprised to see I'm late on the first day. I make my way toward one of the vacant seats in the middle of the room, trying to be as quiet as possible. It's obvious by the stiff posture and annoyed breathing of the professor he's not exactly pleased with my disruption. When I'm about to slide into my chair, he finally turns around from where he's written out the text of the First Amendment, and our eyes meet. Ever have one of those dreams where everything seems perfect? Maybe your boss called you into his or her office and gave you that promotion you've been hoping for. Maybe Publishers Clearinghouse, if that's even still a thing, showed up at your door with one of those oversized checks. Or maybe you ran into one of the hottest guys you've ever seen while grabbing your morning coffee. All great things, right? Until you look down and realize you're naked. That's what this moment feels like. Correction. This is worse, because this isn't some dream. This is real. Lincoln Moore is my college professor. I've been sleeping with my college professor. Without knowing it? Fuck! A throat clearing cuts through the heavy silence. Unsure what else to do. I slink into my chair, doing my best to hide behind the girl sitting in front of me. Even so, the slight tremble in Lincoln's hand as he writes on the board doesn't escape my attention. Evidence he's as surprised about this turn of events as me. Had I walked into this room and one of the other men I'd slept with had been lecturing the class, I wouldn't have been so dumbfounded, but this is different. Lincoln is different. I try to convince myself this is for the best, that this never would have worked out. Listening to his lecture solidifies this assessment. He needs someone who can be his intellectual equal, someone he can debate about what should be classified as obscene and not deserving of First Amendment protections. I'd barely be able to get out a few words without stumbling over them. Conversation breaks out in the room, and I glance up from the blank page of my notebook to see the other students packing up their things. When I glance at my watch, I'm surprised to see it's 15 minutes to 6. I'd just sat through almost an entire 3-hour class without hearing a word. Too consumed with this strange, new reality. Snapping out of my daze, I scramble to shove my belongings into my bag and leave without having to confront Lincoln and endure an awkward conversation where we pretend we don't know each other. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, but I'll figure something out. Try to drop the class. Do an independent study. Something. Anything so I don't have to come back to this classroom. My eyes averted, I attempt to escape unnoticed when a familiar deep voice foils my plan. "Miss Davenport." I stop in my tracks, my shoulders tensing as I exhale a frustrated breath. I hate that he used such a formal tone. It's one he's used with me in the bedroom, but it was part of our game. This isn't a game. In an effort to appear unaffected by this turn of events, I fix my expression and slowly face him, staring into green eyes that mere hours ago looked upon my naked body with an unmatched hunger. "Yes, Professor Moore." When I address him this way, he flinches. "I'd like a word. I have somewhere I need to be. I insist." He widens his stance, his gaze darkening. It's not quite a glare, but it's not a compassionate look, either. It's a new expression, one that tells me not to test him, that this isn't something we can avoid discussing. Just a few moments of your time, then you can go on with your life. His statement hits me hard. By the way his Adam's apple bobs up and down in a thick swallow, I get the feeling it was just as difficult for him to say as it was for me to hear. On a deep inhale, I nod, trailing a few steps behind him as he leads me toward the faculty corridor. This entire scenario makes me feel like an errant teenager who acted out in class and is being handed off to my guidance counselor, who will press me to talk about my parents' divorce and how I'm coping. Except I'm an adult, who just found out she's been screwing the professor of the one class she needs to finally graduate this spring. So much for proving to my father I'm not a complete fuck-up. Once the door to the office closes behind us, allowing us to talk in private, he heads to the window, peering at the city surrounding us. I simply stare at him, unsure what to say. Then he glances over his shoulder. Did you know there's a hint of pain in his tone? Aghast, my eyes widen. What? When you saw me in Vegas, he fully faces me. Did you know who I was and not say anything in the hopes of getting me in bed? Of course not. Why would you think that? How could I not think that? Chloe. He runs his fingers through his hair, tugging at it. This seems to be too much of a coincidence. I cross my arms over my chest. Yeah, because I'd go through the trouble of starting to fall for a guy, only to have to walk away when I learn he's my goddamn professor. I don't know. He stops short, inhaling sharply. What did you say? That you're my professor. I answer in a drawn-out voice. No. He shakes his head, licking his lips. Before that, his tone becomes tranquil, expression softening. I replay the words and stiffen at the truth that poured so freely from my mouth. His eyes plead with me, and I can't deny him this, that I wouldn't fall for a guy if I knew there was zero chance of survival. You were falling for me. He steps toward me, his gaze raking over me, as if searching for something. What? I'm not sure. It doesn't matter anymore. I tear my eyes from his. A part of me wants him to tell me we'll make it work, that the connection between us is too strong to throw away over something as trivial as this. But he doesn't. The compassionate Lincoln transforming back to the man he was the past 3 hours as he lectured the class. You're right. It doesn't matter anymore. It can't matter anymore. He walks to his desk and pulls out a thin book, policies and procedures written on the front in bold letters. He flips to the table of contents before turning to the appropriate page, scanning it. Right. His tone is firm when he looks up. According to the conduct code, as long as the previous relationship is disclosed, it's not a big deal. I hug my jacket tighter around my body, my stomach queasy as I listen to Lincoln talk about me, as if I'm just a problem in need of fixing, not a person he once cared for. I'll go to the dean and let him know, assuring him we ceased all contact once we learned the truth. I'll request a third-party grade all your papers and exams, and I'll forego having class participation be a part of the final grade this semester in order to appear neutral. I nod, still having difficulty coming to terms with this new reality. My eyes scan his desk, everything about it as neat and orderly as I imagined it would be. As I continue looking around, I spy a copy of the syllabus he probably handed out before I'd arrived. I pick it up, my throat tightening even more. And you're only going to disclose this to the dean, right? No one else? Of course not, he insists, then corrects himself. Well, there are ethical concerns, so to err on the side of caution, I'll be informing my boss at the newspaper where I work. You're an associate attorney at the Times, I state, reading his credentials listed at the top of the paper. Yes, he answers, ignoring the forlorn expression on my face. My boss is friends with the dean and is actually the one who recommended me for the adjunct position here. So, our eyes lock. I can't let you do that. Can't let you tell either of them. I don't have a choice, he shouts, placing his hands on the desk and leaning toward me. This is my career. That may be true, but your boss at the newspaper, David Jensen? Lincoln's expression blanches, seeming to sense I'm about to drop yet another bomb on him, which I am. He's my father. Chapter 17. The surprise that covered Lincoln's expression when he turned around and realized I was one of his students is nothing compared to the utter and morose shock now plastered on his face. His jaw drops open, his eyes scanning me, probably for any hint of resemblance to the man who hired him and could fire him. But your last name is Davenport. He shakes his head, brow furrowed, as if hoping the fact I don't share his last name will negate the DNA running through me. After he divorced my mother, I took her last name. I didn't want a reminder of that man attached to me for the rest of my life. He exhales, pinching the bridge of his nose. Chloe. I step toward him, folding my fingers together as I beg for him to keep this quiet. Please, Lincoln. Maybe if it were just the dean, it wouldn't be so bad. There'd still be a chance he'd mention it to my father, since they're friends. But this, with my father being your boss, there's no way the dean won't tell him. And my father cannot find out. It's not up to me I have to report this. It's right here in black and white. He points to the book in front of him. I'm obligated to report any prior relationship with a student to the dean. Who will tell my father since you work for him? I hiss back. Please, I am begging you. Tears dot my eyes, my throat closing up. Why don't you want him to know? I wrap my arms around my stomach, warming myself against a sudden chill enveloping me. Do I feed him some line in the hopes he'll grant my request? Or do I tell him the truth, revealing another fragmented piece of myself? Help me understand. His voice softens, reminding me of the way he'd whisper sweet words in my ear as I drifted off to sleep in his arms. I want to curse the world for being so cruel, for giving me a taste of something I never thought possible, never thought I wanted, only to rip it away, dangling it in front of me like a memento of something I can never have again. You never could. You probably had the perfect life, the perfect fucking family who supported you through everything. He parts his lips, but I hold up my hand. Well, I didn't. As you figured out, my father's a bit of a hard ass. He snorts out a laugh, the tension momentarily cracking. You can say that again. And he's always been that way. I draw in a deep breath, attempting to compose myself, swiping at the few tears that had managed to escape. All my life, I've been nothing but a disappointment to him and his impossibly high standards. I get that all parents want their children to succeed, but nothing I did was ever good enough. Nothing I do is ever good enough. I pull my lips between my teeth for once. I'm close to finishing something on my own. I lower my voice. I'm close to finally being able to prove to my father I'm not just a massive disappointment. Chloe, I know it makes no sense. I interrupt before he can utter a single word of sympathy for my fucked up childhood and adolescence. Why should I care what he thinks? I ask myself that same question constantly. A part of me doesn't care. But as you've learned, my father is extremely stubborn, and that stubbornness is genetic. So instead of writing him off like I should have years ago, I keep trying, just to say I proved him wrong. I meet Lincoln's eyes that are awash with compassion. Something about the way he gazes upon me makes me think he's dying to wrap me in his arms and comfort me. But he can't do that. Never again. If you report this and he learns I had a prior relationship with my professor, with one of his employees, he'll never let it go. He'll always think I only passed because I screwed my way to a passing grade. Just like he thinks the only reason I was promoted from receptionist to columnist at the magazine is because I was the only one willing to trade my body for tips on celebrity comings and goings. While there may be some truth to his opinion, it's not the only thing that's gotten me to where I am. If he finds out about this, I shake my head, swallowing. If you report this, he'll always see me as the naive 22-year-old girl who made a terrible decision and got herself in a bad situation just to prove she could do more than answer a phone. He stares at me for what feels like an eternity, dozens of questions on the tip of his tongue after this admission, something I didn't think I'd ever share with him, or anybody. Finally, he blows out a long breath, his shoulders falling. I can't believe I'm about to do this, but okay. He brings his eyes back to mine. We'll keep this between us. All the tension rolls off my body, gratitude filling me. Thank you. His expression hardens, his jaw tightening, nostrils flaring. But if I hear the faintest hint of whispers about us, it will leave me no choice. So do not speak a word about this to anyone. Do not say anything during class that would lead anyone to believe there has ever been anything between us. The compassionate Lincoln is gone. Serious and stern Lincoln taking his place. For all intents and purposes, the relationship happened before you were my student anyway. And once we were aware of the situation, we ceased all contact. Neither one of us is taking advantage of the other, so if we keep it quiet, no one will ever know about it, considering I have no intention of continuing this relationship. Such a lawyer, I comment, his words stinging more than I thought they would, trying to get off on a technicality. Do you see any other option? He pinches his lips together. Need I remind you? I'm the one whose ass is on the line here. I'm doing this as a favor to you. I can go down the hall and report this right now. I should go down the hall and report this. No. I respond urgently, advancing toward him, desperate. It's okay. You're right. I swallow hard as I straighten my spine. There is no other option. We stare at each other in silence for several moments. Then he nods. So we're in agreement. We'll continue on with our lives as if this never happened. We'll forget about everything. His tone rises in pitch at the end, his words neither a question nor a statement. I bite on my lower lip to prevent Lincoln from seeing how difficult this is. It's already forgotten. Chapter 18. I barrel into our normal happy hour meeting spot and make a beeline for the bar, plopping into the empty bar stool to the right of Evie, Nora and Izzy sitting on the other side of her. While I'm thrilled Izzy was able to find time in her schedule to come out with us, seeing her only reminds me of Lincoln, considering she was present during the blackout that started it all. Fuck Vegas, and fuck whoever's responsible for that damn blackout. Why couldn't Vegas have lost power and cell service one day later? Better yet, why couldn't our flight not have been canceled? Why did Lincoln have to steal my panties? And why did I have to go get them back? I should know better. Hell, did I not learn anything from the story of Orpheus and Eurydice? He lost everything that was important to him because he looked back. A lesson to all to only look forward. Not only did I look back, but I made several return trips to the all-you-can-eat buffet. Now the hostess is telling me I've overstayed my welcome. Is everything okay? Evie's brow wrinkles as her analytic eyes survey me. Fucking marvelous. I wave down Aiden, our handsome yet very gay bartender. He begins pouring my usual martini. Get me a shot of Jameson too. He peers at me quizzically, as do my three friends, particularly Izzy, who's more than aware of my reasons for not drinking much. I need it today, though. What's going on? Izzy asks once I slam back the shot. Did something happen at class? Nora chimes in. Did you get kicked out for being late? Evie presses. I draw in a deep breath, placing my palms against the cool wood of the bar. No, I didn't get kicked out for being late. This is undergrad. Evie, not the fucking Marines. I playfully roll my eyes, which elicits a laugh from Nora and Izzy. But something did happen at school. What is it? She leans toward me. She holds up her hand. Wait, are we talking need to take the edge off kind of something? Or is it more like, line 'em up and let's get wasted? It's more along the lines of, I don't think there's enough bourbon in all of Kentucky to handle this. The girls look at each other, eyes widening, before zeroing in on me, sitting on the edge of their seats. Okay, spill. Evie fishes the maraschino cherry out of her Manhattan and tugs it off the stem with her teeth. I bring my own drink to my mouth, taking a sip of the smooth vodka. And of course, being a martini, it only serves as another reminder of Lincoln. I've known this man less than 2 weeks, yet I find pieces of him in every part of my life. Is that how it will always be, God? I hope not. Exhaling. I place my glass back on the bar, squaring my shoulders to address my friends, their expressions akin to children meeting Santa for the first time. When I got to campus today, I was only about 10 minutes late. No biggie, at least for me. I add when I see the absolute horror on Evie's face at my admission. So I snuck into the classroom and grabbed a seat in the middle of the lecture hall. I bring my drink back to my mouth with a trembling hand, forcing a smile. But even a fake smile can't mask the hurt in my voice. And that's when the professor turned around, and I found out who would be teaching my First Amendment class. Oh God, Nora exhales. It's your father, isn't it? Did you not check the schedule to see who it would be? I wave her off. It wasn't my father. Thank fuck for that. Then who is he asks, on a hard swallow. I allow his name to roll off my tongue. None other than Lincoln Moore. Holy shit! Nora takes a big gulp of her drink, as if she were the one who'd walked into class and learned the guy she'd been sleeping with was her professor. Oh my God, Evie exhales. Hold on a second, Izzy says, her mouth agape as she stares at me. Knowing I wouldn't have told Evie and Nora about Lincoln if there weren't still something there. You've been seeing Lincoln Moore and never said anything. His name is just Lincoln, I respond, not wanting her to pick up on Nora's and Evie's habit of referring to Lincoln by his full name. And you'd know about it if you stopped working long enough to meet me for coffee. I haven't seen or talked to you since Vegas, so I didn't exactly have a chance to tell you. She waves me off. Whatever. That's not important right now. What is important is what's been going on with you and Lincoln. Nothing now. Well, before, I shrug, we reconnected. Reconnected how? I chew on my lower lip. He kind of took my panties, and I kind of went to get them back. And what you kind of slipped and fell on his dick. It is an impressive dick. It's silent for a moment. Then the girls' laughter carries through the bar, overpowering the chatter and music. Guys, I whine. It's not funny, this is serious. I know, Nora says, tears forming in the corner of her eyes. We're not laughing at the situation. Then, you tripped and fell on his dick, Evie giggles. Kind of. I mean, that guy has some serious game. What are you going to do? Nora asks the question on everyone's mind. I shrug. Hope my advisor agrees to let me fulfill these credits with an independent study instead. This is the last class I need to graduate. But I don't want to sit in that room every Thursday for 15 weeks or however long the semester is. I'm sure she'll agree. Evie assures me. After you disclose your relationship to Lincoln, there's no way they'll let you stay. Right. I avert my eyes, taking another large gulp of my drink. What is it? Izzy tilts her head. I glance at her sideways, then blow out a breath. We kind of agreed to keep it quiet. You what? Evie shrieks, aghast. That's crazy, Nora adds. Not to mention a horrible idea. Izzy offers, no matter what you may think, these kinds of things never stay quiet forever. Briefly closing my eyes, I clench my fists. I understand that, but there's no other option. Yes, there is. Nora pushes. My replacement roommate after you dropped out made the mistake of hooking up with her TA. It went on her record, on both their records, and it affected him for years. All because they got drunk one night, messed around, and someone eventually found out about it. It's not optimal, but I release a heavy sigh. It's not just the fact he's my professor. I knew he was a lawyer, but I assumed he worked at some high-power law firm. Is he some ambulance chaser instead? Evie presses. I bury my face in my hands, shaking my head. No, worse. When I finally lift my eyes and stare at my friends, the truth is plastered in my expression. At least enough for Izzy to put the pieces together. Who better to teach First Amendment law than someone who practices it on a daily basis? He works for your father, doesn't he? It's more a statement than a question. I slowly nod. And you're worried if Lincoln reports this, it'll get back to your father. It's not a question of if. It will happen. My father and the dean golf together. Plus, Lincoln teaches at the university because of his experience as a lawyer for the newspaper. Because my father recommended him for the job, he was adamant about telling his boss, until he found out my relationship to his boss. And your father cannot know, Izzy says in understanding. Precisely. I don't follow. Evie scrunches her nose. Out of the three of them, she's known me the least amount of time, coming in at a point in my life when I'd already distanced myself from my father. We have a difficult relationship. Difficult how he's your father. I can understand how she'd be confused. She comes from the stereotypical family, 2 loving parents, an older brother who adores her, and most likely put the fear of God into all the boys she'd dated in her past. Hell, they probably even have a cookie-cutter house with a picket fence, a la Leave It to Beaver. He may be my father, but that always came second, maybe even third or fourth on his list of priorities. His job always came first, always. It still does. Well, he did remarry soon after divorcing my mother. It's a strange marriage. I don't feel any love between him and Tiffany. No passion, no intense need to be with each other. I think my father simply wanted to have a woman on his arm during important functions, and Tiffany was more than happy to have a career as a housewife. It's not like it was with my mother, a woman who had strong aspirations of her own. He's always had impossibly high standards. So did my parents, Evie offers, still trying to understand this. Nothing I did was good enough. If I won the class spelling bee, he'd point out I failed to win the school-wide competition. If I won a fencing match, he'd comment how my opponents weren't well trained. If I were cast as the lead in the school play, he'd mention all the flaws in my performance. All of this in the hopes of encouraging me to work harder. Did it? Evie's voice is hesitant. At first, yes. I worked my tail off trying to make him happy. Then I discovered boys. And I mean really discovered boys. Do you know what I discovered about them? Evie and Nora shake their heads, transfixed. Izzy listens with polite attention, fully aware of this part of my life. That they were nothing like my father. That they didn't put me down after we kissed by telling me my technique could use some work. And I liked that feeling. Of course, my father hated the fact I became more focused on boys than school. Why should I care? Though, no matter what I did, it wouldn't be good enough. So why try? I take a sip of my drink, needing the liquid encouragement to share this piece of myself with my 2 friends. Despite it all, there's still this part of me that wants to make him proud, to prove to him that I am good enough. And if he learns you slept with your professor? Evie begins, putting the pieces together. He'll never think you earned this degree. Nora finishes. I know it sounds stupid, that it shouldn't matter. We all want to make our parents happy. With a smile. Evie places her hand over mine, squeezing. Or we want to prove them wrong. And I'd love to prove my father wrong. Make him see I'm not a failure. So if you're keeping it a secret, Nora begins after a brief pause. Will your advisor agree to an independent study? All I can do is hope she does. If she doesn't, do you think you'll be able to handle him teaching the class? She asks in all seriousness. I mean, without picturing him naked every time he talks about briefs, or penal violations, or getting a client off. I lift my eyes, staring at her for a protracted moment, then burst out laughing, grateful for the break in the tension. It's a relief, especially after the day I've had. I fidget with the stem of my martini glass, a pang squeezing my heart as I watch a couple walk into the bar holding hands. An obvious affection between them. Actually, I don't think I'll be able to deal with it. So I'll just pray my advisor is on my side and allows me to do an independent study. I swallow thickly. Then I can forget about Lincoln more. Chapter 19. My stomach roils as I look up at the journalism building on campus, the structure feeling more like an unwelcome fortress than a place of higher learning. A chill washes over me, having nothing to do with the frigid January temperature and everything to do with what awaits me inside those doors. The last thing I want to do is walk into this building and sit through class with Lincoln Professor Moore, But I no longer have an option, not if I want to graduate this semester, because I'd taken this class twice before with less than stellar results. Thanks to problems with my mother, my advisor refused to sign off on an independent study. I'd considered withdrawing from the class altogether, but like Izzy reminded me, it's my last one. There's no guarantee someone different will teach it next semester, either, so I may as well get it over with. Spine straight, I summon the determination to walk into the lobby, my steps quickening when I see the elevator doors begin to shut. Thankfully, someone notices me and places their hand on the door. "Thank you," I say breathlessly as I sneak inside, keeping my head lowered. "You're welcome." As the doors close, my breath catches, every muscle becoming rigid. I fling my eyes to my left to see Lincoln standing there, all poised and confident. It's official. The universe is out to get me. I rack my brain to think of what I could have done to piss it off this much. I consider finding the nearest Catholic church, despite not being religious, just to go to confession. Then again, I doubt any priest would be prepared to listen to the number of sins I've committed. He'll probably say a plethora of Our Fathers and Hail Marys to cleanse my soul, too. Professor Moore. I stare ahead, pretending this isn't anything more than a teacher and student sharing an elevator. It's not the first time I've shared one with a professor of mine, but they weren't Lincoln. Chloe. When he says my name, it's soft, compassionate, endearing. "Don't," I snap, refusing to so much as a glance at him. In the silence, I can sense his turmoil. Sense he wants to say something but doesn't know what. I doubt they teach this kind of thing in whatever law school he attended. Probably Harvard. Just like my father. Another reason this is for the best. Lincoln would turn out just like him, in love with his career and nothing else. Better to cut my losses now. "For the record," he states as the elevator slows to a stop on our floor. "I'm sorry things had to end this way." The sincerity in his voice forces my eyes to his, and I look at him. Actually, look at him. I'm not sure what I expected to see. Maybe the same demeanor I've come to expect from him, self-assured, bold, a hint of arrogance. But that's not what I see at all. The way his sad eyes trace over my face with longing is all the proof I need that this has been as difficult for him as it has for me. The green is lackluster. The circles under his eyes evidencing lack of sleep. It could be due to having to pull extra hours at work, but the wistful expression as he focuses on my lips makes me think he's been tossing and turning at night, cursing fate just like me. The doors open, breaking our moment, and he scurries off. I watch his long strides as he continues down the hall, turning into the faculty wing just as I whisper, "Me, too." Pulling myself together, I shake off the interaction and head toward the classroom. It's relatively empty when I arrive, a handful of ambitious students discussing the assigned reading. I assume the same seat in the middle of the lecture hall and pull out the few notes I jotted down as I attempted to absorb this week's material. It turned out to be a lost cause. Whenever I tried, all I could think of was Lincoln. I fear I'll be faced with the same problem every time I open the textbook. I pray Lincoln won't be cruel enough to call on me to discuss the reading. I can only hope he'll avoid bringing attention to me these first few weeks while we attempt to find a new normal in this strange dynamic. "Is all this legal talk as much a foreign language to you as it is to me?" a smooth voice asks after several minutes. I glance to my right as a man I estimate to be in his 30s sits down in the empty chair beside me. I thought I was one of the oldest students in the department, considering most everyone else isn't even able to legally drink yet. How did I not notice him last week? Oh, yeah. Because I was dealing with the fact that I'd been fucking my college professor. Another day in the life of Chloe Davenport. I meet my fellow classmates' eyes. They're a dull combination of brown and green, completely uninspiring. You have no idea. That's a relief. He pretends to swipe sweat from his brow, his smile comforting. After the last class, I thought I was the only one who felt lost. I barely retained anything. It's not a complete lie. I couldn't tell him a single thing that was discussed last week. Right? I get that all this First Amendment stuff is important as a journalist, but can't they teach it to us in simpler terms? I smile politely. While I find it difficult to concentrate on the material because of who is teaching it, it is fascinating. I can understand why my father chose the path he did. Spending your time ensuring people's First Amendment rights aren't infringed unnecessarily is certainly admirable. Why couldn't he exhibit that kind of enthusiasm toward his family? "I'm Owen," he says, extending his hand toward me. I eye it before placing mine in it. "Chloe? Nice to meet you, Chloe." He keeps his grip firm on my hand, holding it a little longer than socially appropriate. When he finally lets go, my skin tingles with his phantom touch. Part of me wants to feel something: desire, craving, lust. Owen is an attractive guy. Sandy hair with hints of copper, deep-set eyes, full lips, clean-shaven jawline. I estimate he's about 6 feet tall, and based on the muscled forearms I see, the sleeves of his white shirt rolled up. I assume he has a nice physique. Regardless, my body has no reaction to him. Almost like my 10 days with Lincoln have now ruined me for any man who's to come after him. "You too," I say, although it's more of a polite formality than a truthful statement. "So, what's your story?" he asks as I turn my attention back to my notes. "What do you mean?" "The usual. What do you do for a living? Why are you studying journalism? What's your favorite sexual position?" I dart my wide eyes to his, unsure how to respond to this inquiry. You know, those usual icebreaker questions people don't give two shits about, but ask each other in an attempt to make inane conversation. He winks, his smile growing wide. I don't know what it is, but something about his cavalier attitude is refreshing. He does have a point. "Well, since you're not going to pay attention anyway," I begin with a grin. "I work at a magazine as a celebrity news columnist. Started as a receptionist just trying to make a living wage and worked my way into the newsroom. So I guess that's why I'm studying it. I've got a foot in the door of an industry that's notoriously exclusive. I figure having a degree will only help me move on to something bigger and better." "You mean you don't enjoy reporting on what celebrities had for lunch or whether they're good tippers?" He looks at me aghast, a playfulness about him. I chuckle, tension rolling off me. Maybe having a friend in this class is exactly what I need, if nothing else. Owen makes me laugh, something I haven't done in days. "Shocking, I know. So, how about you?" "Oh, I'm not too complicated. I tend to follow my partner's lead." I furrow my brow. "Favorite sexual position?" He clarifies, his tone light. "Whatever my girl wants, my girl gets." I stare at him, assessing. If some random guy at a bar said that to me within seconds of learning my name, I'd write him off. But something about Owen's good-natured demeanor makes it more than clear he's using humor to break the ice. So, instead of being turned off by his statement and doing everything to avoid him in the future, I laugh, the sound carrying through the room, echoing against the walls. I don't even care that I'm drawing attention to myself, until a loud, booming voice cuts through. "Miss Davenport." I fling my gaze to the front, seeing Lincoln standing there, his arms crossed, stance wide, expression severe. "If you don't mind, I've called class to order. Or is your conversation more important than the First Amendment?" I blink, my heart caught in my throat. I consider arguing that I was exercising my own First Amendment right, but decide against it. Of course not. I apologize. Several protracted moments pass as he stares at me, making me feel small and insignificant. Then he flits his glare to Owen, his jaw clenching as he does so. To anyone else, his actions wouldn't be seen as anything other than a silent warning to him, as well. But I know Lincoln. There's jealousy in those green eyes. Finally, he breaks his attention from us and turns toward the whiteboard. Owen leans close, whispering, "I'm sorry." I nod, but remain silent, not wanting to draw any more attention to myself. "And for what it's worth?" Owen adds. I glance at him as he passes me an encouraging look. "You have a beautiful laugh." I smile. It doesn't reach my eyes, but it's something. "Thanks." "You bet." He winks, and I feel the tiniest flutter in my chest. If nothing else, Owen could serve as a very welcome distraction. Maybe this class won't be so bad after all. Chapter 20. God, I hate the suburbs. I exhale as the Uber driver comes to a stop in front of a well-maintained 3-story house in an upper-middle-class neighborhood in Greenwich. A thick layer of snow covers the front lawn, making the property look even more picturesque, even more perfect, even more idealistic. The quintessential place to raise a family. I should know, it was once my home, until my father realized he didn't get it quite right the first time around and started over again from scratch. New wife, new kids, kept the house. At least he got that right. Prick! You'd think Tiffany, my father's new wife, would have wanted to move, start their lives in a new house where they could make memories of their own. That didn't seem to matter to her. I wouldn't be surprised to learn she'd insisted he keep the house just to be able to gloat that she took my mother's place. You're doing this for Midge, Izzy reminds me. I float my eyes to her and nod. Midge, my half-sister, is the youngest of the 4 children Tiffany pushed out after marrying my father 15 years ago. The first one appeared less than 9 months after my parents separated, so it didn't take a genius to solve that little mystery. But one kid wasn't enough, so they kept having them. I thought they were trying to form their own basketball team. It seemed like every time I saw them, Tiffany was pregnant. In the end, she simply wanted a girl. It must drive her crazy that the girl she so desperately wanted looks up to me. It's a mystery how the little pipsqueak formed an attachment to me. But when I show up for holidays and parties, she shoves everyone aside, clinging to me as if I pushed her out of my hoo-ha. It's probably the only reason I was invited today. Probably the only reason I'm ever invited. But if it'll help, we can make a pit stop at my parents' house and sneak some of the liquor bottles my mother stole from the airline. She waggles her brows. Didn't she quit the airline, like 10 years ago? 15. But last I checked, she still has those mini bottles. A horrified expression crosses my face at the idea of drinking anything that's been sitting in a plastic bottle that long. Gross. I try not to gag. That stuff wasn't good when it was fresh. Can you imagine how disgusting it would taste now? Not to mention, I gesture toward the house. My father has a very well-stocked bar. I slide out of the back seat of the Uber and step onto the street, meeting Izzy as we walk up the driveway together. The March air crisp on my cheeks. Sharing his DNA has its benefits, like being able to steal some of the 30-year-old scotch he keeps hidden away for special occasions. And you just so happen to know his hiding spot. I pass her a mischievous look as we approach the front porch, the sounds of children laughing and screaming filtering out, as I suspected it would. His youngest daughter's 6th birthday should be a reason to celebrate, don't you think? I suppose you're right. About to open the door, she pauses, looking to me, silently asking if I'm ready. I nod, steeling myself. At least Izzy agreed to come with me, since she knows how uneasy being in this house makes me. She was there when I learned my parents were separating, when I packed up my room, when I got into my mother's car and left this neighborhood behind. Regardless of the months that would sometimes pass without speaking to each other, our connection has remained strong. She'll always put her life on hold to help me out, especially when it involves my father. We walk into the house, my eyes immediately going to a series of framed photos on the entryway table showcasing my father and his new family. I can't remember ever seeing a photo of my parents and me. Sure, there are photos of my mother and me, as well as some of my father and me, but I don't think there's anything in existence of the 3 of us, like we never were a family. Chloe, an excited voice calls out, followed by 2 small arms flinging around my midsection, squeezing me tightly. I was worried you weren't going to make it. I briefly close my eyes, relishing in Midge's unbiased love. Regardless of her mother's feelings toward me, it hasn't rubbed off on her. I wish she could stay this innocent the rest of her life. It's only a matter of time until she picks up on her mother's animosity. After all, we're not born programmed to hate. We're taught that. And I know her mother will eventually teach her to despise me, even if she doesn't do it deliberately. All I can do is savor the fact that Midge hasn't learned to hate me yet. I wouldn't miss this party for anything. It's not every day my favorite sister turns 6. I tousle her perfect blonde curls as she releases her hold, looking up at me. I'm your only sister, but you'd still be my favorite, I sing. Midge, Sweetie, a high-pitched voice calls out, the sound of heels clicking against the hardwood growing closer. Where did you? Tiffany stops in her tracks when she sees Izzy and me in the foyer. Her dyed blonde hair doesn't have a single strand out of place. I imagine she went to the salon early this morning to have it styled and her makeup applied so she'd look impeccable in the presence of all the other house vultures she invited. Oh, Chloe, you made it. She leans in, pretending to kiss both my cheeks before pulling back. It must kill her to have to be nice to me because of Midge. Unfortunately, you missed all the cake and presents. Perhaps we should start telling you to be here an hour earlier so you'll show up on time. For Midge's sake, I bite my tongue at her passive-aggressive statement. I'd figure it out, then show up 2 hours after you said it started. I look down at Midge, handing her the gift bag. Happy birthday, Pipsqueak. Tiffany huffs, crossing her arms in front of her chest. She's made it more than clear she doesn't believe in pet names for her children, but I do. Is this for me? Of course it is, silly. Can I open it? Absolutely. With pure joy in her eyes. Midge plops onto the floor and tears at all the tissue packed inside the bag. She shrieks as she pulls out her gift. I steal a glimpse at Tiffany, who feigns enthusiasm. I saw the wish list she put together for Midge's birthday. Books about important figures in history, educational toys, computer programs to help her learn a foreign language. Nothing any young girl would be remotely excited about. At Christmas, Midge had asked me if her parents were actually Santa, since he seemed to get her the same kinds of toys they did, while other kids at school received fun things to play with. So, I asked what she really wanted, then knew exactly what I'd be getting her for her birthday. You got me an American Girl doll. She jumps to her feet and squeezes her arms around me as I crouch down to her level. You deserve it, Pipsqueak. One of these days, I'll take you into the city so you can go to the American Girl store yourself. You can bring your doll, pick out some clothes for her. We can even take her to lunch there. She squeals even more, hugging me again. This makes it all worth it, being able to give her something she really wants, giving her one moment of happiness. Yes, well, we'll have to see about that, Tiffany snips, head held high. Chloe does have a very busy schedule, but I'm never too busy for you, I tell Midge directly. Okay. She beams, looking from me to her doll. I sense she's itching to show off her new toy to her friends. Go play. There are a bunch of accessories and other things to use with your doll in here, Izzy offers, handing Midge a second gift bag. Midge's gray eyes light up again and she wraps her arms around Izzy. Thanks, Auntie Izzy. You bet. Now go. Grinning, she spins, hurrying into the living room, excited shrieks coming from all the girls, able to feel the heat of Tiffany's glare on me. I shift my eyes to hers. I thought we were clear that only gifts on the pre-approved list were to be purchased for Midge. Oh, you were clear. But as I'm sure you've learned, I don't exactly like rules. I return Tiffany's condescending smile, then spin from her. The instant I enter the living room, all conversation ceases among the house vultures, as I've affectionately referred to them for years. I've never quite understood this group of women. They're all in their 40s, all happy not to have a career, to be completely dependent on their husbands to provide for them. Granted, each is married to someone who does well for himself, all of them having married a man in their 50s or 60s. But I'd never want to be known as Adam's wife or Joe's wife or Nathan's wife. No identity. So handmaidish. Perhaps that was why my father wasn't happy with my mother. She was ambitious, didn't want to sit at home and raise children. She wanted to show me that women could be just as successful as men. And she did. As much as she could when forced to sacrifice her own career to take care of me as a child. Chloe, one of the house vultures says, smiling and pretending they hadn't spent the past several minutes talking about me. If I remember correctly, her name's Stephanie with an I, as she introduced herself to me when we met a few years ago. Not sure why it mattered, but apparently, that unique spelling was important enough that she was no longer Stephanie, but Stephanie with an I. So glad you could finally make it. We were beginning to worry. I meet her fake smile and raise her a fabricated grin. The trains out of the city were running behind schedule. Izzy and I move toward a few vacant chairs, and I take a minute to absorb my surroundings. The place barely recognizable as the home I remember from my youth. The furniture and window treatments are so over the top, probably meant to be a display of wealth, but miss the mark and are downright gaudy. I don't know how you can stand living there, another one of the women offers, dressed almost identical to Tiffany and Stephanie with an eye. I wonder if there's an unspoken rule that every housewife in Greenwich must adhere to the same uniform. Hair just past their shoulders, preferably blonde, with perfect beach waves. Skin bronzed year-round, despite the fact it's only March and not yet beach weather. Pastel-colored sheath dresses showing off the figures they pay personal trainers thousands of dollars to help them achieve. I must stand out with my skinny jeans, oversized cardigan, and knee-high boots. Not to mention my gray and lilac ombre hair. I know, Denise, another one of the house vultures, adds, "It's so big, and noisy, and chaotic. Not a place I'd ever be proud to live in." Well, I could never live in the suburbs, Izzy states in my defense, as she's prone to do whenever I leave Manhattan and come out to this place that often feels like a foreign country after living in the city so long. The fresh air, chirping birds, and large expanses of open space make me uneasy. I much prefer concrete, tall buildings, and a barrage of honking horns. Denise looks at her with a wavering smile, then shrugs, sipping on her champagne, oblivious to the children running around the house. Izzy leans toward me. Drink, the stronger, the better. I'm usually not one to drink during the day, but there are exceptions to that rule. And today is an exception. You got it. She squeezes my side, then heads toward the kitchen. So, Chloe, Stephanie with an eye says. I look in her direction. The barista at the Starbucks by the elementary school recently colored her hair similar to yours. What's her name? She scrunches her brows, glancing at a few of the other women. Lottie, one offers. No, I think it's something like Lauren. No, another woman says. It's something strange, like a stripper name. Lola, maybe? Possibly. Stephanie with an eye still doesn't look convinced. Or is it? She pulls her bottom lip between her teeth. Not Lola. Poppy. She tilts her head and looks at me as all the women nod in agreement. Do you know her? I don't live here, I remind her, so I haven't had the pleasure of having suburban Starbucks. Oh, I know you don't live here. I figured since your hair. I blink repeatedly, trying to mask my utter shock at the stupidity spewing from Stephanie with an eye's mouth. This conversation further proves we need to put more money into our educational system and encourage women to have a career, instead of aspiring to be a trophy wife. So, since our hair is similar, you figure we know each other? She peers at me like it's not a ridiculous idea. You don't? I have to bite back my laughter, desperate for Izzy to return with that drink. Simply because we have similar attributes doesn't mean we're BFFs. I doubt you're BFFs with every woman who's had a shitty blonde dye job. I pause, smiling as I glance around the room at the sea of blonde. Actually, I stand corrected. It appears you are. Her expression falls, her nose turning up in disgust. Well, you don't have to be nasty about it. I was only trying to make conversation. Apparently, your mother never taught you manners. She was too busy teaching me common sense. Here you are, Izzy says breathlessly as she flies into the room, handing me a glass. She meets my eyes, her expression a look of warning to play nice for Midge's sake. With a smile, I take it from her. Saved by the martini, I mumble under my breath. If nothing else, being here does have a certain entertainment value. Whenever I attend one of Tiffany's parties, I often feel like a prostitute who just walked into church, and not one of those we accept everyone regardless of your sexual orientation, past failings, and current drug habits kind of churches. More like those judgmental, holier-than-thou churches that quote the Bible when it suits them, but refuse to practice any kind of forgiveness, humility, or charity. Hypocrites. As always, Izzy sings, "Is Hannah coming?" Stephanie with an eye inquires in an attempt to recover from her earlier blunder. I believe she's still on her honeymoon, Tiffany pipes up. And her parents are decompressing in Fiji now that the wedding's over. A gift from Hannah and her husband. All the women ooh and ah over their generosity. It was a beautiful wedding, Denise comments. Just perfect, Teresa adds. And her husband will be able to provide such a wonderful life for her. She's so lucky to have found a man so successful. She'll be able to quit her job and focus on raising their children. I snort laugh as I bring my drink back to my mouth, taking a long sip to cover my reaction. Something funny, Tiffany asks in a pleasant voice. A smile plastered on her face as she exudes all the manners she was taught during the years of etiquette lessons her upper-class family insisted she attend. The idea of Hannah staying home and raising children? While she did marry a very successful man, and the wedding a few weeks ago was gorgeous, Hannah's not the kind of woman who would be happy adhering to such a societal role. Whenever she comes to one of Tiffany's parties, mostly as moral support for me, she rolls her eyes at the ridiculousness of these women, how they have no drive to have a life of their own, to have an identity of their own. Plus, for as long as I can remember, Hannah has wanted to be a teacher. I don't see her giving up that career anytime soon, or ever. Who else will raise her children when she has them? Carrie asks. She gets summers off. Yes, but what about the rest of the year? Gosh, that is a problem, isn't it? I scrunch up my brow, pretending to be deep in thought, as if this predicament is one no one has considered before. Then my expression brightens. Actually, I read about this new concept that's been around for, probably only 40 or 50 years. What is it called? I glance at the ceiling, pinching my lips together. Izzy stifles a laugh, the only one amused, since I can feel the daggers the rest of the women are shooting at me. That's right. I snap my fingers and return my gaze to them. Daycare. Hannah can put her spawn in daycare. That's assuming she even wants to have children. Why would you get married if you didn't want to have children? Stephanie with an eye asks. I don't know. Maybe because you're in love and want to commit your life to each other. I take a sip of my drink, many of them still looking at me like I'm crazy. So I go in for the kill. Plus, Hannah mentioned wanting to adopt. She works with a lot of kids in the foster care system. Some of them get moved around so much that their education suffers. It's a noble thing. That is true, Tiffany says, always trying to be diplomatic. But aren't a lot of kids in foster care? She trails off, wanting us to fill in the blank so she doesn't have to say it. But I'm not going to let her off so easily. She's always been prejudiced against anyone who isn't white, and what she considers perfect. What I press, I don't think I do. I smirk. Perhaps you should embellish so there's no misunderstanding. Just say it. Izzy interjects harshly, her dark eyes growing even darker. She has very strong opinions on this subject. After all, she is Hispanic and adopted, but it seems they all forget that because, as Tiffany puts it, she doesn't act Hispanic, whatever that means. There's something other than white, Izzy states firmly when she remains silent. Tiffany's eyelids flutter as she holds her head high, placing her hands in her lap. She steals a glance at the children. I wonder if any of these sheltered kids have ever seen a person of color. Well, yes. Wouldn't she want her child to look like her? What will people think when they see their mismatched family? I've always found it odd that as staunch of a defender of the First Amendment as my father is, often filing suits against our own government when they try to suppress the media, he married someone as closed-minded as Tiffany. Then again, I'm not sure my father's ever loved her. I'm not sure he's capable of loving anything other than his career. And I doubt Tiffany's capable of loving anything except a large bank account. Oh, I don't know, Izzy mocks. Maybe that Hannah has a heart of gold. So much so that she'd jump through hoops to take in a child who isn't her own and love him or her like they were. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to adopt? All the women stare at her in silence. It's damn near impossible. Most people give up after so many years because they can't take the constant roller coaster ride anymore. I would never prejudge a family because they don't fit into some mold. It's the 21st century, for crying out loud. I see all walks of life come through the doors of the pediatric oncology wing at the hospital. And yes, some of those kids are adopted. It's heartbreaking to watch those parents struggle to find their child's birth parents to have any hope for a bone marrow transplant. But you know the one thing that's universal, the only thing that matters in any family. The room becomes eerily still, her voice seeming to reverberate against the walls. Izzy darts her eyes to the kids who've stopped playing and are focused on her. She briefly pulls her lips between her teeth as she regains her composure. Love, regardless of whether you're related by blood, love is all that matters. Love makes a family. I reach for Izzy's hand, squeezing it, offering her a comforting smile, like how I love Chloe, even if she's only my half-sister. Midge's voice breaks through the awkward silence. Exactly. Izzy smiles at her. And you don't only love her because you're related, right? No. I love her because she wears cool clothes, has awesome shoes. She grins, lowering her voice to a dramatic whisper, and she swears a lot. A few women snicker, but quickly cover their mouths when Tiffany shoots a glare their way. In my defense, I've made a conscious effort to curtail it when I'm around Midge. I've yet to drop an F-bomb, I think. Just like Daddy. She finishes. So they probably are related. Where else would Chloe have learned to swear if she didn't learn it from Daddy? That's where I learned. I glance at Tiffany over my martini glass to gauge her reaction, an odd sense of satisfaction filling me at the sight of her squirming. After the number of kids she's had, she should know you can't say anything in front of them. At least nothing you want kept private. The apple certainly doesn't fall far from the tree, she says in a saccharine voice, neither confirming nor denying Midge's statement. Speaking of which, how's school going? She smirks at me, probably expecting to hear I've withdrawn from yet another class because outside obligations interfered with my coursework. It's been an interesting semester. I glance at Izzy and we share a knowing look, but I'm happy to report it will be my last. I filed my graduation paperwork a few days ago. I leave out the part about nearly dropping the class earlier in the semester, but as I'd hoped, Owen has made my situation increasingly tolerable. There's still a bit of awkwardness anytime my eyes meet Lincoln's, but it's not as thick as it was in the beginning. Is that right? A deep, booming voice cuts through. I whip my head toward the foyer to see my father standing there, much to my surprise, considering I'd assumed he was working today, as he always is. But his presence here isn't what has my heart ricocheting to my throat, all the air sucked from my lungs. It's who stands beside him that makes me feel like the walls are closing in, suffocating me. Izzy nudges me, silently reminding me to pretend like it's a normal occurrence for Lincoln Moore to be in my childhood home, based on the familiar greetings from many of the house vultures. It might be many of them fawn over him, batting their lashes, sticking their chests out a little, but he doesn't notice them. Just like that night at the club in Vegas. Just like when he sent that martini over. Just like when he nearly kissed me in the lobby of the casino. He looks at me as if I'm the only person who matters. Or maybe he's just as surprised to see me here as I am to see him. Let me get you another drink, Izzy murmurs, forcing my attention back to her. I nod, swallowing the rest of my martini in one gulp before handing her the glass. I meet my father's expectant stare beckoning me toward him, probably so he can demean me in front of his employee in a show of superiority. On a long exhale, I raise myself from the chair and walk across the living room, skirting discarded shards of wrapping paper and boxes filled with clothes. Hey, Dad. I float my eyes from his, looking at Lincoln. Professor Moore. Miss Davenport, so I take it you're giving your First Amendment class yet another try? My father lifts a single brow. He's always had a distinguished look to him. Tall and lean, salt and pepper hair, clean-shaven. Apart from the times he's working on a big case and forgoes normal grooming to pull all-nighters. Smartly dressed, even when he keeps it casual with a blazer and jeans like today. I do need it to graduate. I fold my arms in front of my chest, casually leaning against the wall, trying to appear unaffected when, in reality, my heart thunders against the walls of my chest, threatening to burst through. I won't pop the champagne bottle just yet. It's your 4th time taking this class, isn't it? 3rd? I grit a smile. There were extenuating circumstances preventing me from completing the course the previous 2 times. There are always extenuating circumstances with you. It's your 10th year, isn't it? In my experience, people who've been going to college as long as you would be graduating with their doctorate, not merely a bachelor's. He laughs jovially, as if his humor rivals that of a comedian. That's how it's always been. He makes snide comments about everything I've done that fails to live up to his expectations, shrouding them in humor. But he means every biting comment, even if made in a light tone. If making passive-aggressive remarks were an Olympic sport, he'd be more decorated than Michael Phelps. I clench my teeth, my jaw tensing, yet I still smile. It's my last line of defense to act as if I don't care what my father thinks, that his statements have no effect on me. What can I say? I've never been one to stick to the rules. Rules are there for a reason, which I'm sure you're learning from Lincoln. Professor Moore here, he corrects quickly. I look at Lincoln, a hint of sympathy in his gaze as he witnesses this strange dynamic, observing the exact reason I begged him to keep our past a secret. He's only 35, yet he's accomplished so much. Graduated at the top of his class at Tufts, then went on to Yale Law, worked for an advocacy group in the city before I stole him away. He's one of the top constitutional scholars in the country, a remarkable feat for someone so young. And you know why he's already achieved everything he has. Because he's a white man, I quip, partly joking, partly serious. He rolls his eyes. It's something my protest-happy political strategist mother would say. Because he knows about dedication, about having a strong work ethic, about putting in the time and effort to achieve goals, even if the path might be hard. I inhale a deep breath through my nose, my lips pinching together as I do everything to maintain my composure and not completely lose it. Actually, Chloe is a wonderful student. The faculty speaks very highly of her, particularly her advisor, Lara Stone. I whip my eyes to Lincoln. Lara Stone isn't exactly a pioneer of hard-hitting journalism. My father scoffs. But I suppose I can understand why she'd say that, considering she ended her career at a daytime talk show. That kind of thing is right up Chloe's alley. Not real journalism. Simply reporting on celebrity gossip. No wonder they get along so well. We all have to start somewhere. Lincoln's tone is polite, despite my father's clear displeasure over the idea of anyone standing up for me. At least she's working in the industry and learning how a magazine runs. He gives me a reassuring smile before looking back at my father. A part of me wants to stop this, to tell Lincoln I don't need him to stand up for me. I stopped standing up for myself in this man's presence ages ago. But that's at odds with this small part that wants him to keep going, to hear the kindness and compassion in his tone. Not everyone is fortunate enough to land a desk at the Times right out of undergrad, he continues, referring to my father's dumb luck. But Chloe's been in my class for 6 weeks now. In those 6 weeks, she's demonstrated an incredible understanding of the First Amendment that would rival that of any law student. In fact, he glimpses at me. She'd make one hell of a lawyer. My father peers at him with curiosity. Can he sense there's a history between us? Don't fathers have this kind of sixth sense about men who've been intimate with their daughters? Chloe in law school. He bursts out laughing, the gritting sound making the hair on my nape stand on end. That's rich. It took her 10 years to finish her bachelor's. Could you imagine how long it would take her to graduate law school? He wipes at his eyes. Come on. Let's get to work. Jovially slapping Lincoln on the back, he forces him away from me. He probably thinks the longer he stays in my presence, the greater the chance of my inferiority rubbing off on the man who's obviously his star attorney. I remain frozen in place, summoning all my strength to pretend my father's comments have no bearing on me. As they're about to disappear into my father's office, Lincoln glances over his shoulder, his eyes locking with mine. Then he mouths, I'm sorry. That could have so many meanings. Is he sorry for what my father said? For not standing up for me more? Or is he sorry for us? Chapter 21. I make a beeline for Izzy, ignoring the curious eyes from the house vultures, and snatch the martini from her. Shakily raising it to my lips, I gulp down a large swallow, the liquor burning my throat. Come on! She loops her arm through mine, pulling me out of the room. Let's see what kind of food's left over. I saw a few of my mother's famous tamales. Her voice is bright, a stark contrast to the warring emotions filling me at not only seeing Lincoln unexpectedly, but hearing him stand up for me. Izzy doesn't release her hold on me until we're out of earshot and in the large eat-in kitchen. At least she didn't lie about her mother's tamales. As expected, they were barely touched, most likely because it's ethnic food, as I'm sure Tiffany referred to it. At this point, Izzy's mother probably sends it to piss her off, considering my father loves her tamales. I grab a plate and pile on 1 pork and 1 chicken tamale, peeling back the corn husk before slicing into it. Once I've taken a bite, I look at Izzy, my muscles relaxing. We stare at each other for a few seconds before simultaneously breaking out in laughter at the ridiculousness of the situation. The only thing that would make this even more awkward is if Asher shows up. I shove another heaping forkful of ethnic food into my mouth, moaning at how delicious it is. Considering I haven't spoken to him since we left Vegas, there's a greater chance of this house being struck by lightning. She grabs a plate, assessing the options, settling on a few tamales as well. What are the chances Lincoln would be here? He does work for my father. I guarantee Dad tried to go into the office today, but Tiffany undoubtedly threw a fit of epic proportion. So work coming to him was probably the compromise. What did your father say? She leans closer, her voice barely audible. Did he pick up on anything? No. As usual, our conversation revolved around the fact I'm a complete failure who doesn't follow through on anything. All jokingly, of course. She rolls her eyes. God, I hate that. I don't know why you put up with it. If it were anyone else, you'd give them a piece of your mind, then knee them in the junk to make them think twice about speaking that way to anyone else again, shrugging dismissively. I glance at the refrigerator, the surface devoid of anything personal. No birth announcements, none of Midge's artwork, not even her latest spelling test because it wasn't good enough, even though she'd received a high mark. I've learned to pick and choose my battles. It's like he wants to piss me off, wants me to lose my temper with him. Why give him the satisfaction? It's best to suck it up for the 10 minutes a year we actually do speak to each other. Then go back to my normal life he no longer has any say over. It's silent for a moment as she assesses my statement. And what did Lincoln have to say? My cheeks warm as his deep voice complimenting me echoes in my mind. I smooth a strand of hair behind my ear. He told my father I was one of the smartest students he's ever had, that my understanding of the material would rival that of a law student. Of course. My father nearly dropped dead from a heart attack at the suggestion of me going to law school. So Lincoln stood up for you, I suppose, I answer nonchalantly. That's sweet. I shoot my eyes to hers. What? No, it's not. It's demeaning and chauvinistic. I don't need Lincoln to protect me from my asshole father. I've done just fine handling him for the past almost 29 years of my life. And I'll do just fine the next 29 years. I shove more tamale into my mouth, barely chewing before swallowing and inhaling deeply, using the food as a distraction from the conversation. He could have simply said you were doing well in class. He didn't have to go the extra mile and say you're exceptional, yet he did. She narrows her eyes, pinching her lips together. I think he's struggling with this as much as you are. Would I practically choke on my food? I'm not struggling with this. Izzy bursts out laughing. Nice try. Chloe, you wouldn't be eating your emotions right now if you didn't still have feelings for him. I pause with my mouth wide open, about to shovel in even more food. I'm not eating my emotions. I put down the fork, pushing the plate away. I'm just hungry. Whatever you say. Like I said, we've agreed to pretend that Vegas never happened, or the few days that followed. It's for the best. Do you really believe that? Of course I do, I retort loudly before lowering my voice. Even if I didn't. It doesn't matter, I remind her. I get that, She trails off, blowing out a long breath. Do you remember what you said while we waited for our flight out of Vegas before it was canceled? When I told you about the man I kept running into whose name I didn't even know? She subtly nods. That maybe there was a reason you kept running into each other. The same can be said here. Maybe this is the universe's way of telling me it would have never worked out anyway. That we really are too different to be compatible. You should see the man's apartment. There wasn't a speck of dust anywhere. And his closet. Izzy smirks, crossing her arms in front of her chest, clearly amused. Yes, the clothes were actually hung up, on hangers. What she shoots back in faux shock, bringing her hands to her cheeks. You mean they weren't thrown all over the bed and floor? This isn't right. It must be some sort of witchcraft. You know what I mean, I whine. Her joking expression lightens, and she looks upon me affectionately, placing a hand on my bicep. I don't know Lincoln all that well, But there's something to be said about playing Never Have I Ever with complete strangers. You learn things. I don't think you two are as opposite as you believe. Footsteps sound from the hallway, and I snap my head up, expecting Tiffany to come in and berate me for being antisocial by hiding away in the kitchen and stuffing my face with food. Instead, Lincoln rounds the corner, coming to an abrupt stop when he sees Izzy and me. He hesitates, forehead wrinkling as he seems to weigh his options. "Lincoln," Izzy greets, breaking through the silence. "What a surprise to see you. And here, of all places." I pinch her side, an unspoken warning. He pulls his lips between his teeth, and I sense him mulling over his words. Then he recovers his composure, posture straight, eyes distant. "David said there's coffee?" Pushing away from the counter, she passes him a sly smile. "Chloe can show you while I use the little girl's room." I dart my wide gaze toward her. But even with the death stare I give her, she doesn't change course, floating out of the kitchen without a single look back as she sings. "Good to see you again, Lincoln." He remains silent, not acknowledging her. Once we're alone, he brings his eyes back to mine, but I can't bear to look into their depths. Spinning from him, my purposeful strides taking me toward the coffee bar in the corner of the kitchen. "I can do it. It's fine." I practically bark out, grabbing a pod and placing it into the 1-cup brewer. I groan, realizing someone turned it off, so now it needs to warm up and heat the water, drawing out Lincoln's presence even longer. I press the power button, staring at the machine as it hums to life. "I'm sorry about what your father said before," he offers after several moments of strained silence. "Don't—" I whirl around, my hardened stare cautioning. He steps toward me, but I hold up my hand, preventing him from coming any closer. "I don't need your help." I seethe, my nostrils flaring. "I've been dealing with that man fine my entire life. Got it." He stares at me for several intense moments, then nods, his shoulders falling. "Got it. Good." I spin around, staring at the screen on the brewer, willing it to stop preheating. "Has he always been that way?" he asks after a pregnant pause. I shrug. "You mentioned he's why you didn't want—" He trails off. "I guess a part of me thought you were over-exaggerating. I didn't realize what I face him once more. How much of an asshole your boss is." He shoves his hands into his pockets. "I knew he was a hard ass. He has a reputation for being one. But that's what makes him a great lawyer. He doesn't stop pushing, even when facing adversity." "But you assumed he'd leave the job at the office." He brings his bottom lip between his teeth. I look away, the memory of how those lips felt against mine only making this more difficult. It's one thing to have to watch him during class, but at least there's distance between us. Now that distance seems to decrease with every beat of my heart. "Yes, I did." He takes another step toward me. My brain tries to tell my body to retreat, but I'm still drawn to him. The magnetism I felt that first meeting ever present. "That's why you're here, isn't it? You think I come here so he can use me as a verbal punching bag? Hell, I'm only here because I assumed he'd be working, like he always is. If I had known he'd be here, I never would have made the trek out of the city." He peers at me thoughtfully, peeling away layer after layer. "I don't think that's true. You do this for her." "Who?" He floats his eyes to my wrist where the beaded bracelet Midge made me sits. She put so much effort into it, telling me how she learned to spell sisters so she could make it. It's the most thoughtful gift I've ever received, but it allows Lincoln a peek into who I am, even more so than he's already had. "Your sister." I quickly cover the bracelet with my free hand, shifting my feet. "Midge, right." I nod, the movement borderline imperceptible. "You come here for her, don't you?" "It is her birthday party." My tone is sarcastic as I try to shrug off his insinuations. "Everyone is here for Midge." Slowly shaking his head, his eyes rake over my face. "That's not what I'm talking about. You leave the city and come to suburbia, which probably stands for everything you despise, just so Midge feels loved. You'll do whatever you can to make her realize she's perfect, that everything she does is perfect." He smiles, laughing slightly. "Even if she misspelled sisters and mixed up 2 of the colors in the bead pattern, you'd never point it out to her. You probably told her how much you loved it, how you'd always treasure it. More so than some ridiculously expensive piece of jewelry from Cartier or Tiffany's some guy bought you just to have a shot with you. Isn't that right? Bewildered, I stare at him, his words so accurate it's frightening. Maybe. He forms his mouth into a tight line, squinting, as he continues to analyze me, the space between us decreasing. You're quite the conundrum, Chloe Davenport. What makes you say that? My voice is low, wanton, husky, his nearness casting a spell over me. That morning in Vegas, you made it sound like you were incapable of being loved, that you were incapable of loving anyone. You may not have come right out and said it, but I've been practicing law long enough to know how to read between the lines, to make educated assumptions. And what assumptions did you make? That you wanted to take a risk but were scared of the potential ramifications? Worse, that you were scared people would think you aren't as strong as you want them to believe because of your feelings. But you can love someone and still be strong. I don't see how. I managed to croak out, love makes you weak. No, it makes you human. His breathing increases as his lips hover even closer, barely a whisper away. Don't you want to feel human again? Don't you want to feel again? I close my eyes, convinced this is a dream. There's no other explanation for this conversation, for this moment. Not after he insisted we keep our distance, that we forget each other, that we pretend we don't know each other. But if it were a dream, I wouldn't feel the heat of his breath ghosting against my lips. I wouldn't feel the tingle of what's to come overtaking me. I wouldn't feel my knees growing weak in anticipation. I lift my chin, my heart drumming violently in my chest as we flirt with the devil. The fact that touching Lincoln is forbidden only makes me want him more. Makes me want him in ways I've never craved another man. I do want to feel, I whimper. The past several weeks of not tasting his lips pushing me past my breaking point. Then feel me. His voice is a low growl as he erases the final distance between us. Suddenly, footsteps echo, crowing closer, cutting through our trance. My eyes widen, breath catching. At the same time, Lincoln jumps back. The tenderness mixed with yearning that covered his expression replaced with fear and regret. There you are, my father's familiar voice bellows. He comes to a stop when he sees me. Oh, I apologize. Was Chloe bothering you? She should know better than to try to butter you up just because she's realized you work for me. I turn around, taking a moment to settle my flushed complexion as I finish preparing the coffee. I wasn't buttering him up. I offered to make him a coffee since he's a guest in this house. I whirl around, gritting a smile. Then again, I suppose I am now, too. Here you go. I hold the mug out toward Lincoln. I prepared it how, his sharp intake of breath, coupled with his frantic expression, cuts my statement short. I snap my mouth shut, horrified at what I was about to say. The last thing I need to mention is that I know how Lincoln likes his coffee. That's not exactly something a professor includes on the class syllabus. How I like it, I finish, recovering. I hope only a hint of sweetener is okay. That's fine. His lips curve up in the corners. I wonder if he's recalling the few times I brought him coffee in bed, along with another kind of morning pick-me-up. Tell her if it's not. My father insists. You shouldn't have to drink something you're not happy with because Chloe wasn't paying attention. I taught her better than that. Actually, it appears I take my coffee like she does. His eyes remain locked on mine. Even if I didn't, I'd never depreciate someone's kindness and generosity that way, he adds. But my father glosses over his comment. Right. I just got off the phone with the legal department of a small newspaper down in Texas where that school shooting happened. Lincoln nods. Normally, I tune out once my father discusses anything work-related, since it acts as a reminder of how he'd never love anyone as much as he does that job. But something about watching the wheels spin in Lincoln's head turns me on, has me glued to him. The same way I find myself mesmerized in class when he plays devil's advocate with the other students, sometimes to the point of almost being an asshole. The passion he exudes for the subject is unmatched by anything I've ever witnessed. The court sealed the criminal record of the accused's father, from whom he stole the gun he used in the massacre. They've asked us to help prepare an emergency motion unsealing it. I don't have to tell you the importance of this information. So let's get back to work. He spins on his heel, walking out of the kitchen, past the living room, not acknowledging Midge. I wonder if he even wished her a happy birthday. Based on my experience, he most likely didn't. Lincoln hesitates, his gaze locking with mine, and I can sense a part of him wants to stay to clear the air we've now muddied. "Are you coming?" my father calls from down the hallway once he realizes Lincoln didn't immediately follow him. My eyes beg him to tell my father no, to ask me to go somewhere with him. Regardless of how wrong it is, this once, I want a man to choose me, to want me, to fight for me. But he doesn't. Instead, he shakes his head, turning from me without a single glance back. Chapter 22. Earth to Chloe. Owen sings. I lift my eyes to his, wondering what we were talking about, having zoned out. "Welcome back, sunshine." "Sorry." I offer an apologetic look. I'm a bit preoccupied. I shift my attention to the front of the room where Lincoln will deliver his lecture. It'll be the first time I've seen him since our near kiss this past weekend, and I'm not sure how to act. I've spent the past several days convincing myself that everything having to do with Lincoln Moore has been one big mistake. From sleeping with him in the first place, to agreeing to give him a chance, to nearly kissing him during Midge's birthday party. With a few sweet words, I allowed him to see behind the mask, to peer into my soul. Never again. From now on, I'll treat Lincoln exactly how he'd asked when we started this charade back in January. I'll act as if I have nothing more than cold indifference toward him. "Everything okay?" Owen asks. "Yeah, I've had a lot on my mind. The last thing I want to do today is sit through this class." "Well, you might get lucky." He gestures to the clock right above the doorway. "It's 10 minutes after. 5 more minutes and we get to leave." That's odd. Leigh Professor Moore is usually punctual. True, unless he got distracted with Professor Gordon. He playfully nudges me in the side, if you know what I mean. Heat washes over my face, my heart plummeting. Actually, I don't. Everyone knows about Professor Gordon and Professor Moore. He looks at me as if I just asked what color the sky was, as if it's a fact that just is, no explanation necessary. Professor Gordon and Professor Moore are an item. My voice comes out more like a squeak. "I figure you knew, like I said." Yeah. Everyone knows. I chew on my lower lip, doing my best to pretend this news has zero effect on me. It shouldn't. But I can't stop the myriad of questions that pop into my mind. Was he dating her when we met? When he begged me for a chance? When I gave him that chance? The relationship makes sense. He's ridiculously handsome, intelligent, successful. And Professor Gordon is what many of the guys in the department refer to as a solid 11 on a scale of 10. Like Lincoln, she's young and incredibly ambitious. In fact, she's the driving force behind a website, the sole purpose of which is to give unbiased news in an age when corporations and big money buy newspapers and television stations in order to skew the message. I guess I just kind of tune out all the gossip here at school, I add, my voice lacking any emotion. Owen doesn't seem to pick up on my sudden change in demeanor, though I can understand that, considering you must get your fair share at work. Yeah, when the door opens, all eyes shift in its direction, watching as Lincoln walks into the room. His hair is a bit disheveled, his tie not as tight and straight as it normally is. I do my best not to glare, but fail miserably. Well, I guess he was able to pull himself away. After all, Owen mutters. Jealousy, raw and ugly, rears its head. There could be a perfectly reasonable explanation for his harried appearance and tardiness, maybe an emergency filing at the paper. But a sinking feeling forms in my stomach that it has nothing to do with work. I apologize for the delay. I had something to take care of. Now, who wants to tell the class about the infamous cake case? Owen leans toward me. I bet he did. He waggles his brows. "Mr. Campbell?" "Damn it," Owen utters under his breath, barely audible. "Why don't you tell us the background of this case?" Owen straightens in his chair, looking through his notebook. When he speaks, his voice evidences his nerves. It doesn't matter how often he gets called on in class. It's more than apparent he hates public speaking. A couple went to a popular local bakery to discuss a design for their wedding cake, but the owner refused to serve them because they were gay. Did the owner refuse to serve them? Lincoln shoots back. Or was it something else? Well, he refused to make the cake for them. Better, Mr. Campbell, it may not seem it, but there is a difference. Technicalities are extremely important in the law. Now, what did the couple do? What did? He hesitates, flipping through his notes, searching for the answer. I shift my notepad so he can see, subtly pointing to my own scribblings on the case. Owen offers me a grateful smile as he glances at my notes, which are surprisingly much more organized than his. Filed a complaint with the local Anti-Discrimination Commission. And why does that matter? Owen looks at his pages again, but it won't be in there. He can talk about social injustice and current events with an understanding and expertise I doubt I'll ever possess. But when it comes to the law, he has trouble wrapping his head around procedure and how it all fits together. I tap loudly on my notebook, getting his attention once more, and he steals a glance. "Oh," he says after reading, lifting his eyes to address Lincoln. Because the state had enacted an anti-discrimination statute, preventing any business from discriminating on the basis of race, gender, or sexual orientation, among other things. Correct. So it sounds like this is an anti-discrimination suit. Then why are we studying it in a First Amendment class? Owen stares, uncertain, pulling his bottom lip between his teeth as he attempts to formulate a response. I'll wait while Miss Davenport gives you the answer. His tone is biting. And I hate that he seems to pick on Owen disproportionately to the other students in class simply because we've formed a friendship over the past several weeks. Well, I'm done playing this game. Done letting Lincoln use Owen as his own verbal punching bag. The owner of the bakery argued the anti-discrimination law violated his First Amendment rights. I say without raising my hand. Lincoln shoots his eyes to mine, as does everyone else, considering I've yet to speak in class. More specifically, the Free Exercise Clause. He claimed the state overreached in commanding him to make a cake for a wedding he objected to on religious grounds. Thank you, Miss Davenport. Should I assume you're Mr. Campbell's mouthpiece now? I suppose that's better than the other way around. I pinch my lips into a tight line, crossing my legs. Lincoln scowls, an unspoken warning in his eyes, before he shifts his attention back to Owen. Now, Mr. Campbell, what did the court decide? I don't even give Owen a chance to respond before answering. They sided with the asshole baker, but not on the bigger issue of the intersection of using the First Amendment as a defense to an anti-discrimination statute, but because they believed the commission exhibited hostility toward the baker's religious beliefs in its decision. Thank you for that rather astute analysis. Mr. Campbell? He barks out in a condescending tone, as you so succinctly put it in a voice that's much more feminine than your normal one. The court never decided the issue of the intersection of anti-discrimination statutes and the Free Exercise Clause. So why would I require you to read this? To demonstrate the lack of balls the court exhibited, I quip sarcastically. Lack of balls, Lincoln repeats. Several of the other girls in class giggle at his statement. Exactly. He folds his arms in front of his chest, widening his stance, turning his attention fully to me. My pulse increases as I focus on his biceps, the flexing muscles stretching the material of his suit jacket. I push down the memory of having those arms wrapped around me, how it felt to be enclosed within them. And if you were on the court, what would you have decided, Miss Davenport? All eyes in the room shift toward me. Most every other student would probably say something well thought out and educated, based purely on legal precedent. But that's not me. I've always been much more emotionally driven. That the baker shouldn't be permitted to not serve a customer just because of his bigoted view, which he shrouded in religion. I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure Jesus would be pissed. Or God, or whomever makes the rules. The corners of his lips curve up. So you wouldn't afford him his constitutional right to the free exercise of religion. Where would it end, I counter? Everyone's attention shooting back to me. Should we allow restaurant owners the ability to refuse service to gay couples too? Lincoln grins. I thought he'd be upset by my persistence. Maybe he was at first. But now I can't help but feel he's getting some kind of satisfaction out of me arguing with him like this. Then let's take the anti-discrimination law out of it. Let's just look at this from a First Amendment standpoint. Should a state be able to force a citizen to create art for someone else, regardless of whether they're straight, gay, black, white, woman, man? Take away all the complications here. Shouldn't people who create have the right to decide which commissions to take? I smirk. So baking a cake is a protected form of speech now. Art is considered speech, just a different form. But where does it end, I say once more? Going back to my example from before, a chef could consider plating his entrees art. Does he get to deny people service? That's not the same thing. Those entrees, although pleasing to the eye, aren't created for their aesthetic qualities. And a cake as I arch a brow, he shrugs. While I've never been married myself, I have plenty of friends who have. Choosing the wedding cake is one of the most important items on their to-do list. They go over designs for what seems like days. Hell, some of these people aren't even called bakers or pastry chefs, but cake artists. These cakes can take days to finish. If we were discussing a simple sheet cake with a layer of plain frosting, like one you'd buy at a local grocery store, I'd be inclined to agree with you. But that's not a wedding cake. At least no woman I know would ever stand for something so ordinary and trivial. You may not like it, but these distinctions are important. These lines are important. Of course, I shoot back, my voice growing louder and increasingly annoyed. I understand how important it is to have clearly drawn lines. My words come out biting, causing Lincoln's eyes to darken and narrow on me in a look of warning. I should stop right now. Get back on track and apologize for my outburst. Make up some story about having a gay friend who should be able to have the wedding cake of his dreams. But I don't. All the heartache at having to sit in Lincoln's presence for weeks and not be able to touch him, feel him, kiss him has come to a head. Add in the knowledge that he's been seeing someone else, and I've lost the ability to give a shit about keeping my mouth shut. I'm sure your anal retentive nature needs the ability to put everything into boxes. Boss, employee, male, female, rich, poor, teacher, student. I pause briefly, noticing Lincoln shift uncomfortably, the cords in his neck straining, his fists clenching. When I continue, my voice becomes increasingly agitated with each word. No gray area, no crossover, no risk. But lines sometimes get blurred. Sometimes those blurred lines are okay because you finally feel something so perfect and beautiful, and you just want to tell society to fuck off and let us be together. My voice rings out as shocked gasps fill the space. Lincoln's posture stiffens as he gives me a death glare. It's not until I see his reaction I realize exactly what I've said in front of a class of several dozen journalism students who love nothing more than a juicy story. Them, I correct softly, my tone wavering. Let them be together. His jaw twitches as his lips curl almost into a snarl, his stare cold and vindictive. Class is dismissed. Miss Davenport, my office, now. Without another word, he collects his things and storms out of the room, leaving everyone in stunned silence, including me. Chapter 23. The walk from the classroom to the faculty corridor seems to be miles instead of the dozen or so yards it is. I can't help but feel like a condemned prisoner heading to the gallows. Hell, I can practically hear the warden yelling "dead man" walking in the recesses of my mind. I almost turn around countless times, deciding it isn't worth it, that I should withdraw. But my father's biting comments and my drive to prove him wrong push me forward. With my head held high, I steel my resolve, about to knock on Lincoln's door when it swings wide. My executioner standing before me, his anger having only increased in the past several minutes. Oh shit. He yanks me inside, closing the door behind me. I barely have a minute to catch my breath before he leans toward me. What the fuck was that, he seethes, the vein in his neck engorged. Are you out of your goddamn mind? He paces, tugging at his dark hair, more frazzled than I've seen him before. A part of me wanted this reaction, wanted to see this passion, this intensity, this humanity, instead of the unfeeling, unaffected human who's been standing in front of the class for weeks, doing everything to ignore me, to pretend he never met me. What were you thinking? He stops, turning toward me, his voice choked. I promised I'd keep whatever we had a secret. For you. I blow out a laugh. Right. For me. Not because you didn't want a certain someone to find out about us? I roll my eyes, allowing my heavy bag to fall to the floor with a loud thump. He advances on me, his expression flashing with rage, jaw tense, lips achingly close. What's that supposed to mean? Exactly what I said. I step back, increasing the distance between us. My mouth formed into a tight line. Did you not think I'd find out? Find out what? I place my hands on my hips. About you and Professor Gordon. I hiss. Why did you beg me to give you a chance when you were already getting a piece of ass? Or is this part of your game with every word? My voice becomes more strained, the hurt that he was never serious about me causing my fists to clench, my body to quake with anger. See how many women you can get to fawn over you as some boost to your fragile male ego. I fight back the tears threatening to fall, hating that this man has brought out these kinds of emotions in me. I've often prided myself on not allowing anyone to get to me, but Lincoln has. It makes me despise him even more. What are you talking about? Oh, please, don't play dumb now. It doesn't suit you, Professor. I'm not playing dumb. You think I'm dating Tess, I mean. Professor Gordon? Not just me. The entire student body of the journalism department claims you guys are an item. Apparently, it's common knowledge. And what makes them say that? Because I agreed to talk to her students about defamation one day. I shrug, not answering. The truth is, I'm not sure of the details. Didn't stop to verify any information. Not like I normally would. The shock of it rendering me momentarily incapable of doing so. Stealing a glimpse at his face. I study his features, searching for any sign he's playing me. But all I see is genuine confusion. Or maybe because I've been seen having dinner with her on occasion, considering she often reaches out to the Times for help with FOI filings when they affect matters of national importance. Lowering my head, I pull my lips between my teeth, my confidence waning with every reasonable explanation he gives. Or maybe it's because I genuinely like her as a person and can trust her. So when we're seen having lunch together before class, it must be a precursor to something more. Because certainly men and women can't be friends. One must be interested in the other. Is that right? I shake off my indecision, turning my resolute gaze back to him. He can come up with different explanations all he wants. After all, he is a lawyer. That's probably one of the first things you learn in law school. How to bullshit. But he can't fool me. You haven't denied it. When he steps toward me, his green eyes darken as he studies my face, taking his time to appreciate the curve of my cheeks, the heart-like shape of my lips, the fire in my stare. The heat radiating from him is reminiscent of our first night together. When he came into my room and looked upon me with so much hunger, wanting the night to last an eternity for fear that what we had would vanish the instant the lights came back on. Chloe, the way my name rolls off his tongue makes it sound like a prayer, a benediction, a supplication. I've missed the intonation when he says my name, my real name. I'm so tired of having to be Miss Davenport around him, of him having to be Professor Moore. There have never been two lines I wanted to blur more than those. How can I date someone when I'm still hung up on the last woman in my life? I release a tiny exhale of air, blinking repeatedly, taken aback by his admission. And who's that? I barely managed to squeak out. This incredible woman I've been unable to stop thinking about since the moment I laid eyes on her when she was stuck at a bachelorette party in Vegas, where she was obviously miserable. Sounds like a smart woman, I retort, my tone lightening. In the blink of an eye, Lincoln's able to shift my outrage into something else, something much more electrifying. Bachelorette parties are akin to torture. Then you'd probably like this woman. I know I did from the instant she finally spoke and told me off because she thought I was trying to hit on her. But you weren't. No, he answers smoothly, then quickly corrects himself. Well, I mean, in a way, I suppose. I don't know. But something drew me to help this stunning woman when some drunk guy, who thought she was a prostitute, wouldn't leave her alone, regardless of whether I was lucky enough to find out her name. I needed to go to her, to remind her there are decent people in the world. He leans toward me and cups my cheeks in his hands. That there are people who think the world of her, regardless of what others have led her to believe. As I relish in the heat of his rough skin on mine, I whimper, not wanting this moment to come to an end before it has a chance to begin. That I think the world of her, regardless of what my behavior has led her to believe. All sense of where we are, who we are, flees from my mind at his captivating words, and I grab the back of his neck, forcing him to erase that final bit of space between us. The instant his lips press against mine, sparks shoot through me. Every inch of me floods with warmth, with desire, with need. Our bodies molding together as we greedily reignite this connection we've done everything to pretend never existed. I swipe my tongue along the seam of his mouth, begging to taste what I've been deprived of for too long. With a growl, Lincoln deepens the kiss, enclosing me in his firm body. His hands move to my hips and he lifts me with ease, forcing my legs around his waist. Losing myself in him, I remain oblivious to how wrong this is. In this beautiful moment, nothing else matters. That he's my professor, that I'm his student, that we've just eviscerated any line we had drawn. But the truth remains. There is no line. Not when it comes to Lincoln. Not when nothing else has ever felt so fucking right. A man obsessed. He deposits me on the desk, sending neatly stacked files and papers to the floor, tearing his lips from mine with a heady groan. He trails a hot path along my jawline, sucking and biting on my neck. The scruff of his trim beard is jarring and bruising, yet so wanted, making me feel more alive than I have in weeks. I could never forget you, he assures me, his voice laden with desire. You're all I've been able to think about. Chloe. Every time I walk into class and see how incredible you look, all I can focus on is getting you alone again, of feeling you again. Then feel me, pulsing against him. I reach for his pants, unbuckling his belt, desperate for him. As I'm about to lower his zipper, he grabs my wrist, stopping me. My eyes dart up, meeting his. I brace myself for him to tell me this is a mistake, that he lost his head, but he doesn't. Instead, he brings his lips to mine, feathering soft kisses. I don't have a condom, he chuckles, the deep rumble electrifying. I don't exactly make a habit out of bringing girls back to my office for this sort of thing. I don't care, I breathe, let me feel you. His mouth slams against mine once more as he squeezes my thigh, the pressure leaving no question there will be a mark. And just like our first night together, I'm confident that's exactly what he wants. That every time I look at my body and see the bruises on my thighs and bite marks on my neck, I'll be reminded of who put them there, who marked me, who branded me as his. I'm yours. I exhale, giving him the confirmation I know he needs. Mine, he snarls, an animal in heat. Yours always. Mine, he says again, this time softer, more heartfelt. His hand moves up my leg, disappearing under my dress. When he pushes the skirt up around my waist, I meet his eyes. A devilish glint appears within as he hooks his fingers into the band of my panties, ones he bought for me. With quick movements, he lowers them down my legs before shoving them into his pocket. And those are mine, too. He kisses me, starved and greedy. Yes, yours. His teeth clamp onto my bottom lip, the pain dueling with the pleasure of what's to come. Then he leans back, his eyes locking on mine. He runs his hand along my collarbone, traveling between the valley of my breasts, down my stomach, coming to a stop just shy of that place I'm desperate to have him touch, explore, command. I should feel cheap and dirty, considering he has me on his desk, legs spread, leaving me exposed to his fully clothed body. But I just want Lincoln, any way I can get him. He brings himself out of his pants, raising his arousal to me. My pulse skyrockets and I hold my breath, bracing to experience him with no barrier. He looks at me, an unspoken question in his tender gaze. I nod. His pupils dilate, about to drive inside, when a knocking rips through the space. Link. It's Tess. Every muscle in his body grow taut, all the color draining from his face. Shit. Eyes that overflowed with primal heat mere seconds ago widen, filling with remorse and disgust. In a heartbeat, the Lincoln I met in Vegas is gone, transforming into the Lincoln I saw the first time I stepped foot in his classroom, into Professor Moore. "Just a minute," he calls out, his voice trembling with anxiety as he hurriedly shoves himself back into his pants, readjusting his suit. "I heard you ended class early." There's a pause before she speaks again, her voice lower. "That you got into it with Chloe Davenport? I wanted to make sure everything's okay." "I'm in the middle of a phone call," he replies as he practically throws me off the desk, pushing my skirt down to hide any hint of impropriety. When I remain in place, shocked from the sudden shift in demeanor, he grabs my bag and thrusts it at me. I blink repeatedly, feeling like an errant child who was caught with her hand in the cookie jar when she knows it's off limits. Like I know Lincoln's supposed to be off limits. That doesn't make this any easier. It was a misunderstanding. We've straightened it out. I can assure you it will never happen again. His eyes narrow on me, his expression severe. It doesn't take a genius to hear the true meaning behind his words. "Okay," Professor Gordon's sweet voice carries through. "I'm around if you want to grab a drink." "Sounds good. I'll be with you once I put out this fire." I listen as her footsteps retreat. Heat covers my face, making me momentarily oblivious of the consequences. And I reel back, landing a hard slap against his cheek, the sound seeming to reverberate in the small space. At first, he's stunned, his body frozen. I gave Lincoln a chance because I thought he was different. Thought nothing would turn him into an asshole. Thought he wouldn't become like every other guy who made me feel cheap, useless. But he's just like them, willing to get a piece until they're reminded they have a wife, a girlfriend, a life they don't want to lose. Maybe my father's been right all along. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'll never be good enough. Lincoln's expression softens as he licks his lips. "Chloe." I quickly shoot up my hand, cutting him off. I want to tell him I'm going to the dean with the details of our relationship to spite him, but he'll know it's an empty threat. I was the one who didn't want him to tell anyone. "You're right." I square my shoulders, my words straining past the lump in my throat. "It was a misunderstanding, one that will absolutely never happen again, no matter what." I storm toward the door, about to open it when he calls out to me, "Chloe." The timbre of his voice is tender, a complete contradiction to the way he just spoke to me, as much as I know I shouldn't. I look over my shoulder. Turmoil covers his expression and he moves toward me, his eyes pleading. I fully face him, hope building inside me that he's about to apologize, say he made a mistake. Then he slowly reaches into his pocket, pulling out my panties. "These are yours." He holds them out toward me, swallowing hard, a hint of reluctance on his face. "Remember in elementary school when your teacher tried to shape your behavior toward others and promote kindness by saying that actions speak louder than words? Well, this moment proves that's true, because this one action obliterates my heart more than any words ever could.